Welcome to the Software Report, a leading information source on software companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Enrique Lizaso, founder and CEO of Multiverse Computing, a company developing quantum and AI software for enterprises across industries. Founded in 2019 and headquartered in Spain, Multiverse has expanded across Europe and North America, offering tools that improve efficiency and performance through quantum computing and artificial intelligence. Its key products include CompactifAI, which compresses AI models for real-time use, and Singularity, a platform that applies quantum and quantum-inspired algorithms to industrial and financial applications. Before founding Multiverse, Enrique served as Deputy CEO of Unnim Bank and co-founded startups in blockchain and healthcare technology. I am your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow. Enrique, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a delight to be with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure just to be here and try to answer your questions and to share what we are doing here.
First off, I believe you're in San Sebastian.
Yes, today. The headquarters of the company is located here. San Sebastian is part of the Basque Country, which is a part of Spain close to the French border. But we have some other offices in Toronto, which is large. We were born both at Toronto and San Sebastian at the very same time. And then in Europe, Paris, London, Munich, and now Italy, Milano.
I spent some time in San Sebastian. It's my favorite place in the world. I spent a summer there over 20 years ago. And during the time, myself and a bunch of friends got a chance to head over to Pamplona for the running of the bulls. So I know the area pretty well. So to kick off, let's talk about multiverse computing. And you've founded other companies previously, and perhaps Multiverse is your first foray into kind of quantum computing, or maybe you did it before. Maybe give us an idea of how it started.
Yeah, yes, I found some other companies. I mean, I still remember the first one. The first one was very short-lived. We were just two, and the other co-founder died. So that was a friend. But you know that you should move when you are just flying, I mean, from one side of the Atlantic to the other, because this is healthy. Okay, he was not doing that again and again and again and again. But multiverse computing is the first that we just set up with quantum in mind. Quantum inspired, and then going to AI. That's funny because when we set up multiverse computing, and that was in 2019, that is 6 years ago already, we thought that company was going to go very slowly, that the company was going to grow step by step, because quantum computers you can use for very few things you can do with a pure quantum computer. But we were also using quantum inspired techniques, which is classical software. Classical means that can run on your laptop or your mobile or wherever, that mimics how a quantum computer deals with information, particularly those tensor networks, which is part of the, let's say, quantum inspired techniques, are the algorithms that you use to benchmark a quantum computer. And given that a quantum computer may be so fast, tensor networks are super efficient. So was incredible because the company started to grow in corporations. People wanted to use some of them, some experimental solutions, pure quantum, and some others, solutions that they could deploy on a business line based on quantum inspired, on tensor networks. And then it grew a lot. At some point, we discovered those ironies of destiny that the tensor networks, the quantum inspired methods we were using, were well suited to AI problems, particularly to compress some AI models. We learned that with a customer. We said, okay, if we can compress AI models, maybe we can compress large language models. The only way just to see whether it works or not is just by trying. So we tried, and it worked. And then we say, okay, let's go to have the point of view of some other customers. We went there. The customers were delighted, most of them, because the LLMs were smaller. They consumed less energy, and so they can just save money. Then we say, okay, that's fine. Now we'll have a product that has traction, but now if you want in this AI world to be somebody, you have just to raise a large amount of money and grow not fast, but hyper fast, let's say. Then we raised a $250 million round, and then the company now is, I think that today we're 220 and growing to 250 people. So this is crazy.
And is that the product is CompactifAI?
Yes, this is our main product. I mean, we have some others in quantum, pure quantum. We still have solutions in pure quantum, but let's say CompactifAI nowadays is our largest product. This is the one, that compress an LLM, okay? It takes an LLM and reduces the size. You can determine which is your final size you want, but usually the total compression is about 80% to, in some cases, 90%. And because this is not linear, the savings in energy is about 50% or something like that. So that means that the final price for in inference time of those models, because we take an LLM, usually an open source LLM, we compress that. And then if you are just running this LLM from an API on the cloud, this is half the price. I mean, our prices are super low there. If you want to deploy the LLM on your on-prem, you need half the NVIDIAs, and that means a lot of money. And if you want just to go extreme, completely extreme, and you want to put an LLM on an iPhone, for example, you can do that. And then you have an LLM that can answer things from your iPhone. It's never as good as, let's say, OpenAI ChatGPT, but if you want to run, let's say, a fridge, if you want to run a maths model just to help for the children, to help them in the school or whatever, yes, it works. It works perfectly well.
I'd like to understand the time at which you decided to take in outside capital. It seemed like somewhat serendipitous that what you were doing was applicable to AI, and you decided to then, okay, let's build this product, let's start to scale. So did that happen kind of around the 2024 timeframe or before then?
No, that was in 2024. I mean, we decided to try to compress an LLM on 2024, okay, because that was, I mean, an LLM is a cathedral in the sense that this is one of the largest AI systems that we know. And we say, okay, let's try to compress that and see what happens. And then what happened is that, okay, we compressed that. And as I mentioned, the energy we were using in inference time was half the energy or even less. But that translated immediately on prices and say, okay, my God. So we have a product here, but we have a product in the hottest field here. And then it's not only about that, it's that, okay, if we need to raise money, it should be just focusing this part of the company through AI. And then they will say, okay, we do that. Okay, we did that ultra fast in the sense that we took the decision and we just moved the company, some operations of the company, not the full company, just to reinforce the part of just compressing and delivering LLMs and then arriving to strategic agreements with AWS and then some others, etc., etc. But this is the time for those things to happen.
And so the investors you brought in, were they in Spain, in Europe, or US?
Yes. The last round, the one that was $250 million, okay, that round was led by GP Bullhound, okay. They are international, mostly British and American, some of them. They are also in Spain, but the deal was led by the international team. Okay, we have also some US investors, First Point particularly, and then some others from Europe, for example, Santander Bank, which also happens just to be an Spanish one. And then we also have money from sovereign funds, the sovereign fund this is public money, from Spain and also from Italy, also particularly the EIB, the European Investment Bank. The company is still, as I mentioned before, headquarters are in San Sebastian, so we are formally European, although we have operations obviously in Canada and now in the United States. And quite importantly, I mean, one of the investors that came at the end but was super large was Hewlett-Packard Inc., the device manufacturers and so on, because they were interested in this technology to ultra compress LLM and put that on devices. Because that means that the customers may use LLM on device just to make cheaper their work. They have to rely always on that. And I forgot that Toshiba also entered in the round and so on. So the round was quite international.
Were you surprised at the amount of capital interested in the company?
Not exactly. For us, I mean, this is the largest round that we have raised so far. That's for sure. But if you have a look at the super large funding rounds in AI, we say, okay, That's fine. That's fine. It's true. But I mean, I think that it's not the largest one. Okay, we cannot compare, obviously, with Anthropic or OpenAI or those guys. But in terms of, for example, of Europe, this is a super large round. And also, in terms of new companies arriving to the AI field completely new, okay, this is not bad. Not bad.
What's the biggest challenge in scaling? You have a lot of capital to deploy and your customers, you're onboarding, I'm sure, at a fairly rapid.
It's always, I mean, there is, for me particularly, the trickiest part is always the sales. I mean, you have to double the sales every year. This is what we are doing, and probably you know that the main reason for the CEOs to be just haircut, not here but here, is not getting the volume of sales they should. Okay, so because in this field, the key metrics are more or less quite clear. Right now, most of the people are using analyze and rate, those kind of things, but those are sales. So sales are immediately related to the size of the valuation of the company. And the funding rounds are happening every 6 months to 1 year, something like that. So if you want just to raise a new valuation, a new round, and so on, you have just to double the sales, and that's easy. And then everybody's happy. If you don't do that, you feel the hit.
Which sectors are you finding you're better able to sell into? I'm sure it's all sectors, but is financial services, healthcare?
We love to think of ourselves that we are in the business of swapping batteries. Swapping batteries? What is this? I mean, it's like when you have some appliance and you change the batteries inside. The point is, you are using this LLM. This is super costly for you. Try our LLM, which is going to save you half the money. But then there are, I think, from our point of view, there are 4 kind of customers in this field, in AI, and particularly in LLMs. The first one are the, let's say, digital natives or generative AI digital natives. That is, companies that has used an LLM at the center of their product, and they have put the rest of the products. Cursor, for example, or for legal things or whatever. I mean, those are products that they are selling super well, very good. They are just growing a lot. Those people use basically APIs from AWS, Microsoft, whatever. Okay, this is the first kind of customers, and they are growing very well. Second kind of customers, traditional corporations. We came from this field. We have a lot of customers from this field. Those corporations, they are slower to adopt the LLM. They have to think where they to deploy. They have to think whether they are going just to make people redundant, or they are augmenting people, or they want just to try a different thing or whatever. But this is a growing kind of customers because they know they are going to be disrupted and they have just to integrate LLMs. Okay, this is the second one. The third one is quite new, are the device manufacturers. The people that wants to put an LLM locally to run some of the interfaces or giving some devices some kind of intelligence or so on. For example, do think is not our customer, but do think about Alexa. Okay, I know that AWS may be angry or so on, but you ask Alexa, turn on the lights. Okay, and then Alexa connects to the cloud, with some skill to the provider of the bulb or whatever thing you have bought from the cheapest shop in China, and then all the way back. It has no sense, okay? Because you are not going to discuss philosophy with Alexa. You are not going to ask for a medical problem or whatever. I mean, you just want to turn on the light or so on. So that may run locally, this and more things, okay? Those device manufacturers, we think that this is going to be one of the fastest segments in terms of growth. And not talking about robots or whatever, okay? But nowadays, for example, here we are working with HP, but we have also models for the, let's say, for defense. We have even models, multimodal models that can run on Raspberry Pi and can, for example, tell you whether, I mean, if you are showing them a picture of a tank, they can identify the tank, the nationality of the tank, and say, okay, beware, because this is not a real tank. This is a guy that is showing me a picture of a tank, which from the point of view of the drone, that matters. And then there is a 4th kind of customer, which is growing fast. I don't know what is an intermediate customer, but data centers. Okay, I will explain you why. I mean, we are compressing the model and we are just saving half the energy. But that means that for the same amount of energy, which is the bottleneck for the data centers most of the time, okay, you can just, if you use our models for inference, okay, you can double the outcome of the data center. You may have even on an extreme case, double the revenues in inference time of the data center. And that improves a lot the return on investment. Even if not the half, because inefficiency is later with the customers, not with the model, but with the data center, 30% of additional revenue or whatever, that's incredible. So this segment is growing fast because people are putting a lot of money in new data centers, but also adding this software stack, that represents a large increase on the return on investment. This is the world as we see that.
And I'm wondering, we recently spoke to DDN, Direct Data Networks, Alex Buzari, and his technology also kind of helps optimize the processing of the data and kind of reduce the amount of energy and time needed. I'm wondering how you look at this space of other technologies and where you fit into it, or do you have direct competitors?
Yes, this is a regular question. We should think about, let's say, competing technologies, because pure competitors like us, there are so far, I don't know. There may be some Chinese company, they mentioned me 2 hours ago, a smaller one, but in terms of using quantum-inspired technologies, it's not honest. But people are compressing models using, for example, quantization, which means saving the model instead of using, let's say, 16 digital figures. They are using you use only 8 or 4 or even less. So you are compressing by using less decimals after the point. This is the most used way to compress the models, but it doesn't reduce the consumption of energy. You have nearly the same model, but with less precision, and you are affecting the precision.
Mm-hmm.
And you have pruning. Pruning like that is just, let's say, you take a neuron from your brain and you are pruning. And you take another and that's all. But at some point, you make the mistake and you are pruning the neuron that you shouldn't take out. And then you have a problem with cognition and everything. Exactly the same happens. This is a blind technique. Distillation is different. Distillation is just you use a small model and you use a large model just to teach the other one. So the point is our technology is compatible with all of them. So let's say companies, some company launch a small LLM. This is super good because we can even compress it more. So that is happening again and again. Our nano models came from previous models that they were small, but not small enough to fit in the device. So we compress. Or, for example, the very good Chinese models, Quen and so on, that we just are compressing, and some of them, they are already just quantized and so on. And by the way, we know how to do some other tricks with the models about just erasing filters, in the weights, or just adding filters just to sanitize the model, etc., etc. So those kind of techniques that we are using, that I mentioned before, that came from the quantum computer area, allow us to see the models, the LLMs, and generally speaking, all the AI models from a different point of view. We focus on the correlations, which part of the models are activated when you ask them to do something, which those correlations are spurious, has not relevance, and which correlations are relevant. So we can focus exactly on which are the part of the model that we can slice out and take out and go for that. So in that way, this is like a guide, let's say, or pruning, super good, because we can observe the patient as we are slashing parts of the brain and say, that's happening. And we can also control the level of damage, if you want to say that we may provoke. So the error is controllable.
You're scaling rapidly. I'm curious what your leadership philosophy is. It's important to have a strong culture while you're doubling revenue.
Yes, truth be told, we learned that in Canada. We were raised in Canada, in Toronto. We are in Spain. We came from Spain, but the Canadians in the University of Toronto and the Americans there, they taught us some real nice things. First of all, size matters a lot. So you want to be large in this field or wherever, but particularly you must grow fast and be a large fish in the pond, at least in your pond. The second thing is, you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow or whatever. We are going to have, let's say, an AI Armageddon or a bubble explosion or whatever. So, as somebody told me there in Toronto, if they open the box of candies, take as many candies as you want. If you are raising money, you are going to have a delusion, that's for sure. But was something that they talked to us. And I think that even if we are not getting, let's say, the most of the evolution of the company, at sometimes, I mean, it's better just to go that. Because later on, you have opportunities. You have M&A opportunities. You may enter in let's say that we have an AI bubble, let's say that, so, and the bubble explodes and so on. There are going to be a lot of corpses there.
Mm-hmm. Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
This is difficult to say. I mean, personally speaking, I mean, that is from some previous boss that I have. But you are not exactly asking for that. Okay, you are asking from some people where they have some kind of super influence on that. It doesn't came from the tech part. I mean, I'm not wearing the t-shirt, but we also say, okay, I have a t-shirt that is Napoleon telling, okay, join the revolution. I mean, we are, as you can see, a bit Napoleonic, even we are not French, but you take the opportunity and you change the world. Okay, a guy from Corsica, I mean, 2 centuries ago, they changed all the landscape in Europe. That's doable. Okay, I know that this is not a business guy, but I think that, you get the idea.
Excellent. Okay, last question. Tell us something about yourself. Like, what hobbies do you enjoy outside of work?
Well, yes, I fly. I love to fly. I learned how to fly in 1919, gliding. I mean, yes, sailing without engine and so on. I have been able to maintain my certifications. Probably, if you have seen my CV, I am a bit strange. I'm a medical doctor at the beginning. Okay, I can practice, but I recommend you not to let you be treated by me. Then, mathematics. I have a degree in mathematics as well, computer engineering, and an MBA from a business school, a very good one, yes, and then a PhD in biostatistics. So, why flying? Because, I saw an advertisement in a newspaper Sunday, and I said, oh, that's funny, I want to do that, and so on. And here in Spain, it's strange. It's not the US. In the US, it's easier, it's better, faster, larger planes, and so on. But I fell in love with that.
Enrique, it's been a great conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity.